Howdy, all. Actually, we'll start the show right now and then go in. No, wait, no. I have something that we talked about beforehand. As you know, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I did really like the Star Wars movie, the first with the J.J. Abrams. I can't even remember the name of it, but the seventh one.
The Force Awakens?
The Force Awakens, yeah. I thought it was excellent. It was well done. And I also thought that the Rogue One was really good. So, in terms of quality of movies, they're bringing it. I think I was just colored by that middle of the three that were with Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman. They were just bad. Now, I joked.
I would disagree with they're just bad. There were good things about them. I think the easiest thing to do is to look back at a movie like that and say, well, they were just horrible. Maybe there wasn't some great acting with those two people. I mean, I thought Natalie Portman was good. I think
she's a great actress.
But the thing is, the CGI was fantastic. There were other things that people went and saw the movie for. So stop being a snob. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, okay. I saw the original three when I was like a kid, when I was like 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever it was. And they were fantastic. Now, obviously, in terms of the quality of the CGI and special effects and things of that nature, they don't stand up to what is being done today. But they were great movies for their time. The middle three, I thought, the special effects were great, but even when I saw them originally, I didn't think they were anything good. So I'm just saying the step up, they've stepped up their game with the newest movies. That being said,
also it's a decade later, right? I mean, effects are way better. It's more than a decade, probably.
Sure, and the reason I bring all this up is because the preview for the next movie, The Last Jedi, just came out. And I tweeted sarcastically, boy, this looks like a bomb. And you should see the reactions that I got from people like,
you have to know that. But you have to know that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, cool your jets, people. I mean, calm down. I'm just kidding. It looks like it's going to be good. It's going to be the last.
Showed just enough Mark Hamill to get everybody excited.
Yeah, well, please. I mean, if anybody was looking for Mark Hamill in the first one, you should ask for a refund, because I think it's I can say it now that he was in the last scene of the movie. I mean, zip-de-doo-dah.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, let's get the show started here. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, April 14th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and federal government, I do have my taxes in. And this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, Russ, we had 3 games in the NHL Game 1s last night. Let's start with the one that was at the Verizon Center in D.C. between the Maple Leafs and the Washington Capitals. This is the one I focused on the most early because I cover the Maple Leafs for HockeyBuzz. And I have to say, the Maple Leafs came out really well. They came out as a heavy underdog should, not feeling any pressure. All the pressure's on that big team from D.C. with Ovechkin and Backstrom and all those guys. And the Leafs took it to them the first 10 minutes of the first period, got the 2-0 lead, which, if you know the Leafs, that's the worst lead for them to get because they can't hold leads.
Right.
And at probably around maybe early second period, you saw, I think, the Leafs sort of start to feel a little tentative. Maybe they realized the stage that they were on, and a little bit of a pullback. And as that happened, it was 2-1. The Capitals scored a power play goal a little after a 5-on-3 had expired. And after Justin Williams scored to tie it 2-2, I thought that the only reason that game got to overtime was Frederik Andersen.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they were definitely holding on in the third period, in overtime, where they got maybe 1 or 2 chances, but really off mistakes more than they were the aggressor. They stopped being the aggressor about midway in that game. Washington started being the aggressor. They started sending Shattenkirk in a lot more. I think he had about 5 shots on goal in the third period. And they realized, well, if we do that, they may not be able to stop them. They couldn't. And actually, the second goal by Justin Williams, a little soft on the Leafs defense there. Not to say Justin Williams isn't great, because he really is an unbelievable. He's sort of like Esatikin in the playoffs. Like, he just gets those playoff points. Last year, I thought I saw a downtrend in him. Now he seems to be back. But he got that goal a little too easy, I felt. Like, the puck was out there. The defense didn't clear it.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I take stock of all the other opinions that are being mentioned out there, like this morning, and some of the newspapers or on the radio or other reporters. And the prevailing opinion was, you know, like Frederick Anderson was primarily responsible for the loss because, you know, that was a fluky goal where he didn't know where the puck was and got up. And then, you know, that goal, the overtime goal by Tom Wilson, went top short side corner off the pole into the net. And that's a goal that you shouldn't allow. But like I said before, they wouldn't have been in overtime if it hadn't been for Anderson. He made a number of great glove saves. And, you know, I don't like zeroing in on one guy, but when you see Martin Marincin coasting toward the front of the net as Justin Williams is standing there. I mean, I was waiting for Marincin to break out the bucket of popcorn and start eating it because he had the greatest view of a Washington Capitals goal. And then in overtime, it was a soft dump off the glass that Tom Wilson intercepted and grabbed with his glove, put it down, and shot it. I mean, I'm not saying Marincin was wholly responsible for the loss, but the loss of Zaitsev and the inputting of Marincin definitely hurt the Leafs defense.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, a couple things. Tom Wilson was a heck of a scorer in juniors. I don't want to sound like Pierre Maguire, but he has a shot. And that was a heck of a shot. That was a pro shot that you saw. Anderson played that right. He hugged the post. He gave him about this much room to shoot at, and he nailed it. You can't blame a goalie for that. A goalie cannot cover 100% of the net. People should know that by now, but I guess they don't. But I give Wilson credit. I mean, that was a heck of a shot, and Anderson's got nothing to hang his head on, and he won't hang his head. If anything, he probably gained some confidence, even though that's a loss, because he played a heck of a game. The issue is Zaitsev being out now for game 2. That's going to hurt. That's really going to hurt. I mean, they don't have the kind of depth that that Washington has. They just don't.
Yeah, and with the announcement that Zaitsev is probably going to be out for game 2, I mean, I don't believe Babcock. I haven't seen the transcripts of what he said, but I don't believe he's going to make any changes. But I think he should maybe think about putting in Marchenko instead of Marincin, because the only plus in that respect, because, you know, Marchenko has been a marginal 6-7 defenseman since they picked him up off of waivers from Detroit, but he's a right-hand shot. And that allows you to have 3 lefties and 3 righties, which Babcock likes. What they had to do last night was move Matt Hunwick up to the top pair and play the offside, and he played 26 minutes. And maybe, you know, with
hey, what did I say? I said 27. That was that was my guess. I was pretty close.
Yeah, but with the absence of Zaitsev, he's more trusting of Hunwick and of Polak. And, you know, maybe it's the fact that he doesn't want that. He doesn't want either Polak or Connor Carrick, if he went with 3 righties and 3 lefties, to have over 20 minutes a night. So he shortens his back. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if it's me,
it does seem like that's the way it's going. I don't think he is going to make any changes. Yeah. I think he's going to ride it out for the second game. If the same thing happens in the second game, then I think he'll make changes.
The one thing I would be concerned about from the Washington point of view is put out an APB on Alexander Ovechkin, because I barely noticed it.
He had a couple plays. I think that's a little rough. He definitely got in on a few scoring chances that I remember seeing that were really good. He was using his body. Yeah. Again, he's being asked to play a complete game. If Alex Ovechkin's playing a complete game, you will not see crazy wide open offense out of him. It's just not going to happen. He is trying to do that to win a Stanley Cup and to buy into Barry Trotz's system. I give him all the credit in the world, because you know what? Someday he'll go back to Alex Ovechkin when there's another coach that says, just be yourself again. So right now he's being a team guy.
Yeah, and Babcock was playing Mr. Positive after the game, and I'm sure he's doing the same thing. But honestly, this was a missed opportunity.
It's a good learning experience. I keep saying that, and this game definitely was that. I mean, it definitely was a learning experience for Austin Matthews. He got taken to the cleaners on faceoffs. Most of the Leafs got taken to the cleaners on faceoffs. Kuznetsov was 80%. Nylander was 50%, and Boyle was 76%. And Boyle did win some big faceoffs in the defensive zone when they needed them. And so that's something that I feel like I should point out to people that are wondering about that trade. That is his worth, and he did a good job with that. He definitely – it could have been worse if he wasn't winning those.
I just, and I'll just touch on this, and then we'll move to the next game. But again, with the Boyle deal, it makes more sense if the Leafs are actually a contending team rather than a team that was just going to get. I mean, with Boyle, without Boyle, the Leafs are likely going to lose quickly to the Capitals. I mean, and their miracles do happen. And I wrote yesterday about, the things that would have to happen for the Leafs to win. But Brian Boyle in and of itself isn't going to be a difference maker against the Caps. I mean, maybe he would have been a difference maker against a team like Boston or Ottawa. But, it looked like the Leafs were going to end up in this position playing against a team that won the President's Trophy. And it's just a tough matchup. So, I think Leaf fans should be very pleased with the effort, but I don't think you're going to get Washington being dozy like they were in the first half.
Yeah, and I think they caught Braden Holtby off a little bit early, and then he locked in, and once he locked in, that was it.
Yeah. Okay. The second game, as we move west, the Chicago Blackhawks, who are the presumptive Western Conference representative in the Stanley Cup. I mean, there'll be a few other teams that they have something to say about that. But they opened the series against the Nashville Predators, and it was Pekka Rinne. And Pekka Rinne, the old Pekka Rinne, like the Pekka Rinne who played most of this year looking like UC Soros.
Yeah, we talked about that. If they were going to win any games, Pekka Rinne was going to have to play like that.
Yeah, and he did. And now I watched about half of this game, and
I watched a little less than that, but yeah.
I wasn't very impressed with I would say the energy that the Blackhawks were putting out. Now, maybe that's the fact that they were discouraged by the fact that Rinne was on his game, but I didn't see a lot of chances. There were a couple power plays where I believe there was a 5-on-3 where they passed around for a minute and a half and really did not get any great scoring chances on the Preds. So Victor Arvidsson scores the only goal. The Preds hold on for a 1-0 victory. I don't think the Blackhawks are really feeling the pressure or under any duress.
We've seen this out of the Blackhawks before, where it takes them a couple of games sometimes in the first round to get going. Right? We've seen this happen. Now, I do want to give credit to Rinne. Rinne was terrific. His defense was really good. I did see some scoring chances. Definitely, of course, that Forsberg line creates the goal with Arvidsson getting the goal. Right? I mean, that does lead into, if they don't have any other secondary scoring, it's going to have to be low scoring. And that's why you and I thought it was going to be low scoring. And Laviolette clearly did not open the throttle on this game. And he can't do it against this team. All that said, pretty good effort. They did get the win. But the offense definitely could be better and is going to have to be better. Otherwise, I think they're still going to be in trouble. But this is a big win. They needed it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's easy to say, but obviously the Hawks need Taves, Kane, Panarin to I think push the offense. You can't. I don't think the Blackhawks, like in years past where they had more depth on up front at forward. They can they have some young guys. They have the Ryan Hartmans. They have Tyler Mott. They have Kiro. I mean, now I don't think you can depend on those guys until they prove that they can be dependable in the postseason. That's why I think it's more important for those top two lines of the Blackhawks to, carry the bulk of their offense. And I mean, last night is one game, and they've fallen behind Nashville. I think they fell behind Nashville the 1 year 2-0, where Nashville won both games in Chicago, and the Hawks came back to win the series. So it's not do or die, but I think it's got to be a little bit of a concern for Joel Quenneville. The other game, the third game, which was a pretty interesting one, between the Anaheim Ducks and the Calgary Flames. The Ducks win as expected, since they've won 23 games in a row against the Calgary Flames in Anaheim. They win 3-2. It was a pretty close game, which is to be expected based on the playoffs. But Russ, I didn't perceive that Anaheim was in trouble at any time in this game, and John Gibson made a bunch of really good saves.
Yeah, he did. I did like the Bennett and Monahan goals. They were really good goals. They definitely need to get production out of Goudreau also, and probably a few others. The couple of those Gibson saves were better than good. They were great. And he made like 2 or 3 in a row in one sequence, which was fantastic. And, practically lost his stick. There is this group of people, and I'm not putting you in it, that just seem to never want to give John Gibson his due. Like, if they win, it's like, Gibson won. I mean, down the stretch, all we kept hearing about was Bernier. Oh, they might start Bernier. Well, but they didn't. And they started Gibson. And again, I think people think Gibson is older than he is. He's 23 years old. Yeah. For the goalie position, that's still young. It's very young.
I thought they would go with Bernier because he went like 10-1 down the stretch, not because Gibson's not good. I mean, there are injury concerns with Gibson, and as long as he stays healthy, I mean, if he's, he looked like Gumby. He was that flexible, that impressive.
He was solid. I did find it interesting that now they have Getzlaf up high on the power play, and Eves goes to the front, the disposable guy. Nice goal by Getzlaf. I think he does need to shoot more. He did get 2 points, and I want to give him his due because if you remember, that's what I said. You've got to get goals out of Ryan Getzlaf now. You can't simply get assists anymore. Right. And he did. And he unloaded a cannon of a shot, and I think if they could do more of that, that's going to help them down the road.
The funny thing is, if you think back to 2007, Getzlaf, Perry, I think it was Kunitz was on that line too when he was in Anaheim. Those were the young guns. Those are the guys who were providing support to like Solani and Andy McDonald, the more veteran guys. Now it's Getzlaf and Perry who are the veteran guys, and it's Ricard Raquel and Silverberg who are the young guns.
And they both scored too, and that's a big deal. I mean, again, I always go back and say I always liked Raquel. I talked about him pre-draft. I liked the fact, when he got drafted that he'd be an NHLer. I didn't think he'd be a 30-goal NHL guy. Like, he's really just had an amazing year this year.
Well, of course, Russ. He was a draft pick traded by the Maple Leafs so they could draft Tyler Biggs. So, of course.
Well, we got into this whole discussion this morning. I was on XM and NHL Radio and Gord Stellick and Rob Simpson. And Gord Stellick led me down that path. And I said, look, Gibson to me was a no-brainer. The fact that he was still there was a no-brainer of a pick. Now, I had to explain the Leafs side of things, and without totally harpooning Brian Burke, because I don't think it's all on him.
No.
A lot of people liked Biggs because he was big and played that, rough and tumble game, could score down low, but the problem was he was never fast. And
actually, that's the funny thing. Because I saw Biggs a number of training camps, rookie tournaments. Point A to point B, he had good speed. He just wasn't hockey fast in the sense that during the game, weaving in and out, turns. He lacked that sort of reaction speed that you need in a game going in and out of the play. But from pylon 1 to pylon 2, he was pretty quick.
Right, but again, as he moved up the ladder, you get away with that less and less. Yeah. And so the ways he was scoring in other leagues, he couldn't score at the pro level anymore. This year he had like 13 points and 13 goals rather in the AHL. And that's it. I mean, he's an AHL player. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's what happens. Yeah. The Leafs definitely got taken to the cleaners on that deal. It helped make the Anaheim franchise what it is right now. There's no question, because they probably wouldn't have lasted this long had they not made that trade. It works out that way sometimes.
And as soon as I said Tyler Biggs, Jordan shook her head.
Yeah, well, she doesn't like to hear that story anymore. She's heard it from you too many times.
Okay, so now interesting thing here, and it's been brought up last night after Calgary lost, it became one of the talking points this morning, was the fact that all 5 Canadian teams who were in the playoffs, and this is after no Canadian teams made it last year, that all 5 Canadian teams lost last night. And I think the last time a Canadian team won was when Montreal beat Tampa in their series. I think it was 2 years ago. So I'm okay. I looked at the 5 Canadian teams, and then, like you said before we started recording, Montreal is probably the best of the 5, and I think the Montreal Rangers series is a 50-50 proposition. I think there may be a slight favor, but not by much.
No, I agree.
Right now, none of the 5 Canadian teams are serious Stanley Cup contenders. But what I'll ask you is this. Which one of them, say next year or the year after, is on the road? It was the best of the Canadian teams in terms of being a contender. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff in between now and then in terms of adjustments.
I still probably think it's the Canadians because to me it's easier to fix what ails them than any of the other teams. Whether that happens or not, that's a whole other story. Edmonton's building, but the Canadians right now are closer, I think. The interesting thing is, I never look at hockey and say, oh, well, good, an American team won this year. That's good. We got another year. I get that maybe Canadians, some feel that we've stolen their sport because we have more teams. It has nothing to do with that. It's more has to do about finances, right? And people and being able to sell tickets and having a bigger population. But yet there does seem to be this thing where, well, if my team's out, I'm going to root for another Canadian team. Okay. I mean, but this isn't like the Olympics. This is another sport. I kind of wonder, do Canadians do that with every sport? Because I don't do that with every sport, whether there's American teams, Canadian teams, Russian team, especially like the Olympics. Like if the Americans lose, I'm not rooting for anybody else. Like that's just me. So it's a weird thing.
I can only tell you based on some of the Leaf fans that I know, if the only team left of the Canadian teams is Montreal, they want them to lose. If the only team left is Ottawa, they want them to lose because they hate both of those teams. If it's Calgary,
that's how it should be.
Yeah, if it's Calgary, if it's Edmonton, okay.
Okay. No, but that's how it should be. It shouldn't be a blind, well, I'm just rooting for the Canadian team now. Like, because it's just, at the end of the day, the Stanley Cup is not Canada versus the U.S. It's not.
Now, one point about Montreal, the thing is that Carey Price, and until he signs an extension, I think it's something that has to be factored in. He's a UFA after next year.
Yeah, I don't think there's any issue.
Pacioretty is a UFA in 2 years. Radulov is a UFA this summer. I mean, to me, they're I mentioned to you the treatment that Galchenyuk is getting in terms of him being a 4th line left winger. I mean, I'll put my Karnak hat and make a bold prediction that says that Alex Galchenyuk will not be on the Canadiens next summer or next fall.
And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I just think looking closer to what's going on now, he can't exist on the 4th line. If they want to win this series, he can't stay there. I would bring in Torrey Mitchell. I would move him up. I would put Torrey Mitchell on the 4th line. He's a guy who's used to playing the 4th line. And with Galchenyuk on a higher line, you're going to get more ice time, more shots. It just makes more sense. I don't know what they're doing there. I get that they want to improve team defense. You need team offense. That's what lost you the game.
Right, but the thing is that this is the Claude Julien playbook. This is Alex Galchenyuk is the Russian American version of Tyler Seguin.
But you gotta, when you've gotten fired and you go on and you get another job, you've got to change your playbook a little.
I mean, I don't see. That's the thing, Russ. I don't think they did. I think what's going on. I mean, that's the reason why Bergevin didn't go out and get a scorer at the deadline. He went out and got 4 pluggers. He got Steve Ott. He got Martinson. He got Jordy Ben. He got it's. I mean, those guys
hurt them.
I know, but it didn't help them. I mean, the thing is, it's like, great, you've got much tougher third, fourth lines to play against, but your top 6 is not scoring. And if they don't score, if you shut down Pacioretty and you shut down Radulov, you are done if you're the Canadiens. So that's why I'm saying it's like, I mean, it just increases the pressure even more on Carey Price to be letter perfect. And if he's not, they're not going to win the series. So.
Yeah, and he was pretty close to letter perfect.
Yeah, he was. He was. But, Tanner Glass scored just like Tom Wilson scored. The fourth line guys.
Well, it's different. All right, I'm going to make an argument here. Tanner Glass's goal was less of a skill goal than Tom Wilson's.
Yes, agreed.
I think we would all agree on that.
So, I mean, honestly.
But a goal's a goal.
I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. But if I look at the composition of teams right now in Canada, to me, the team that has the best opportunity to win the Stanley Cup in the next, I would say, 3 to 5 years is Toronto. Simply because, and second would be Edmonton. I mean, the only thing with Edmonton that I'm a little concerned about is they've locked up a lot of salary on their cap with guys like Lucic, with guys like Nugent Hopkins and Eberle, who I don't think are $6 million players. There's not a lot of flexibility there. Plus, they're going to pay McDavid. They're going to sign him. He's probably going to be one of the top 3 or 4 players in the NHL, and deservedly so, but that's going to give him even less flexibility.
Something that's gone, like, underrated or not talked about under the radar a little bit, Adam Larsson's played really well for them.
Yep, and Klefbom, too.
Yeah, and Klefbom has been playing better, but Larsson's played really, really well. And I know that they took a lot of heat on that trade, but Adam Larsson can play. And I think we're starting to see that now with another team with a different outlook, he looks really good. And so that definitely has helped him. I still am going to go with the Canadiens, though, because at the end of the day, the Leafs still have to build up a blue line, and that's going to take a while.
Yeah, let's just say this. I think the Leafs are getting a sneak preview of 2 guys that might be on their wish list in the summer. One I think is going to be too expensive and probably isn't the type of guy in terms of being a more offensive-minded defenseman that they would spend $7 million a year on, which is Shattenkirk. But Karl Alzner, and I watched him last night, he's the type of guy, top 4 defenseman, allows the offensive guy to be taking rushes into the zone. I mean, he would be a perfect partner for a Zaitsev or a Morgan Rielly to elect.
Oh, yeah, he played great against the Leafs. I saw no problem with Karl Alzner's game. Very safe behind the net, move the puck out the way you want to move it. I don't recall any hiccups in that whole game from him.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be Brian McClellan in the next 2 years in terms of the headache he's going to have, because Shattenkirk is a rental, fine, but right. Carlson's a UFA after next year. Dmitry Orlov is an RFA this summer, and Alzner's a UFA. Of those 4, I think he can only keep 2, and I don't even think Shattenkirk is a consideration. So of the 3, he at most he can keep 2, and that's if they let go Oshie, they let go Justin Williams.
Right.
So it's. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough. That's why I think there's so much energy in terms of Washington to win now, because the team is going to be dramatically different next fall.
The one good thing is when the Leafs had that lead, we didn't hear any air horn. And so for the time that we didn't hear any air horn, I was very thankful.
Can I please ask this question as an open question? Is the annoying guy who blows the trumpet in Pittsburgh, does he drive to Washington? Because last night we had the same trumpet going beep, beep, beep 3 times to lead the crowd. It's got to be the same guy, because nobody's that annoying.
We'll ask Brian Metzer. That's who you have to ask.
Oh, my goodness. Just please stop. Somebody bend that trumpet over their knee and stop this guy. It's so annoying.
Listen, now you sound like somebody at a rally. Don't go.
No. I'm not promoting violence, folks. No. Just against the trumpet, not against the person.
Okay.
So every series is through 1 game. right now, only 3 of the 8 teams that had home ice advantage have won. That's Pittsburgh, Anaheim, and Washington.
Right.
Of the 5 teams, Ottawa, Montreal, Minnesota, Chicago, Edmonton, who have lost home ice advantage in Game 1, which team do you think is in the biggest trouble?
Biggest trouble. I
know who's under the most. I know who's under the most pressure.
Yeah, I'm going to say Edmonton.
No, that's Montreal. I think Montreal's under, because the expectation there of that rabid.
Yes, but we need to see the Rangers win at home again. It's very possible we could see the Rangers go up 2-0 in this series and lose both home games. Like, that can easily happen.
But what I'm saying is I think that the reaction of that rabid fan base in La Belle Provence is basically, if they go down, right now they're in panic mode because they didn't win Game 1. If they lose Game 2, they'll be jumping off bridges.
Well, I think that's how Edmonton's going to be, because they're not used to being in this position to begin with. They're playing a very seasoned team in the Sharks. They probably hoped they could take Game 1. Now they have to win Game 2. If you go down 0-2 to the Sharks, you are in deep, deep trouble. It doesn't matter who's on the ice. It doesn't matter if Joe Thornton ever plays in that series. It doesn't.
Yeah. I think the one that's in the least amount of trouble is Chicago, simply because they've been here before and so many times.
They don't care about home ice. They clearly.
Now, Minnesota might not perceive being in as much trouble as they may be, because maybe they don't think Jake Allen can repeat that type of performance.
Well, I think they were happy with their offensive performance. Like, their offensive performance was excellent. So I don't think they didn't lose that game on home ice. Jake Allen beat them. Yeah,
and coincidentally, you look at what happened with Edmonton. And the only difference was Edmonton was at home and Toronto was on the road. But it was the same. It was the same playbook. They both went up 2-0.
Yep.
Young teams getting excited. The veteran, experienced squad methodically comes back, ties the game, forces overtime. And
this is a very hard sport to have the young team go on that kind of run and win a Stanley Cup. It's very hard.
Now, Ottawa. The thing is like, and I think we talked about this when we were previewing the series, that Ottawa was going to try to play shutdown. That's Guy Boucher, and that's what he does. And they get the 1 goal, and they go into the 1-3-1, and they keep Boston from getting a shot on goal for 25 minutes, and they still lose that game. And I don't think you can.
Well, that's where I always feel like shots on goal are overrated, because you could do that and still lose a game. And so, like, if that's the best game plan that Guy Boucher has, he's in trouble. So he needs to work on something else.
Yeah. Now, of the Game 1s that started on Wednesday, all but the Ottawa-Boston game are resuming tonight. Ottawa-Boston's playing Saturday afternoon. I'm not sure if it's an NBC game or if it is. Yeah. But Rangers-Canadiens, Blues, Wild, Blue Jackets, Penguins, Sharks, Oilers. Russ, I think the team that needs to really step up their game and show something a lot more, or they are in danger of, being swept, is Columbus. Because I know that they had that good first period, but then Pittsburgh, weathered that storm, weathered the fact that they lost Matt Murray in the warm up, and scored 3 goals on Columbus. And then Columbus, I don't think, woke up until late in the game when they thought they had a chance to maybe climb back. Tortorella needs to put a burr in the saddle of the Blue Jackets and have them step up their physical game against a wounded Penguins team. Otherwise, if they show them too much respect, I think the Penguins are going to roll over them.
Yeah, I just spoke to someone yesterday that said, well, I really like this series because Tortorella would do this and that, and they'll be physical in that. And I'm like, but they weren't. They didn't do any of that. And so they really, it's one of those things. It's easy to say because that's what they've been doing, but they got put on their heels, fairly quickly, and they never got to play their game. They need to somehow settle into their game. If they never get to do that, then they're going to get swept. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen.
And the matchup that I was sort of like going, was Dubinsky against Crosby, and they didn't really try to match up Dubinsky against Crosby, unless they think that Crosby is too quick and Dubinsky is too slow to cover him. And then I think they were using William Karlsson against him at times, which is strange.
And Karlsson's a bigger guy, and so maybe they're going with that, a little bigger, a little faster. There's no good matchup. Like, we know that. But they have to just forget about that and just play their game. And if they can't do that, they're in deep trouble.
Now, in Edmonton, San Jose, the one thing that is sort of hanging over everyone is the status of Joe Thornton. Now, I saw an interview with him yesterday.
But they won without him. I don't think it's as big a deal as it was pre-series.
No, it isn't. But and Thornton sort of intimated as much when he talked to the media yesterday. It's like, you know, the couple days that I get bought by sitting out, you know, may help later on in the playoffs. So I'm getting the impression, even though I haven't heard anything, that he's not going to play this. They're playing with house money. If they win the second game, that's great. If they
won the game they wanted to win. They thought they need to win one. They won one. They're not playing with Joe Thornton.
And Thornton gets another 3 days of rest or 3 days of healing time on that.
And that's huge. And that's what they're shooting for. And they certainly have enough to beat Edmonton. Now, this is a game where I fear too much pressure is going to be put on Connor McDavid to sort of lead Edmonton out of the woods here. And it really should be more on the veterans like Lucic, who had a good game. He had a good first game. But guys like that, more than Connor McDavid. It can't always be Connor McDavid. It just can't.
Well, and this is the thing. If Edmonton loses this series, will the blame go more on Nugent Hopkins and Eberle for not providing the secondary offense?
Yeah, they'll be the fall guys, because no one will. Even if Connor McDavid had a subpar series, he's not going to get much blame. He's a young player. They'll just lighten up on their lofty expectations. Like, I remember seeing one post on Twitter after he scored, like, hey, he got not scored, he got an assist, and it was like, well, McDavid got 1 point, one of many big things to come. And it's like, big things didn't come in that game for Connor McDavid. There's no guarantee. You don't know how a guy is going to react when he first hits the playoffs. So that may temper expectations for him.
Oh, you locked up there for a second. Sorry.
Okay. Where did you – I'm just going to say that, I saw this. Did you hear the part where I saw a tweet on McDavid where it just said, okay, McDavid got a point, and somebody had tweeted out 1 point of many, like sort of like big things to come. You don't know that. You don't know if big things are coming in this series. And if they don't, people have to temper their expectations of him in the postseason, even if he gets 120 points in the regular season next year. You can't do it alone.
Well, if there's a fan base that has borderline delusions of grandeur that are greater than Montreal, it's Edmonton, because they had all those championships. I remember them obviously with Gretzky and Messier, and then in 2006 when they go to the final, that improbable run with Pronger. It's been a decade since they've been in the playoffs, but they still, there's still that championship thing in Edmonton, the city of champions, or whatever the hell they call it. But
what they used to call it.
Yeah, but and I'm happy for them. They've got a world-class player, and they're going to be a force in the playoffs for a number of years. But it's going to take more than just Connor McDavid.
It is.
To win a Stanley Cup. If you remember, it wasn't just Gretzky. It was Gretzky. It was Curry. It was Anderson. It was Messier. It was Coffey. It was a preponderance of Hall of Famers that got that team to win a Stanley Cup. The Chicago Blackhawks teams that have won cups over the last few years. It's not just Taves. It's not just Kane. It's Hossa. It's all these guys. So it takes more than just Connor McDavid. And so it may take a few years, and finding out whether Draisaitl and Puljujärvi and those players can be the Coffeys and the Messiers and the Currys of this
They
generation.
have a lot of guys that go under the radar. And again, I picked on one last time in Benoit Pouliot, who for $4 million for them has been getting about 28 to 32 points a year, which is not good enough. But
for $4 million, $4 million.
Yeah. Now with the Rangers, he had that great year because again he played much less expectations. But in the playoffs, you're talking about a guy that has 14 playoff points in 55 career playoff games. He didn't get a point in the first game. I saw him get one good shot on goal. You need more out of guys like this who are getting paid like that. You do.
Finally, Russ, you said you wanted to mention something about the under-18s that are going on.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. And, if people go to Sportsology, you can see some of these kids that I have on my rankings, my 2.0. Number 13, Isaac Ratcliffe, had a really impressive goal yesterday. A 6'6" left winger. He's only listed at 195, but he's still pretty strong for his level right now. But just imagine when he's like 220. Like, that's something where I have a feeling, some GM is going to be very happy. But he looks good for Canada. Ryan Poehling looks great for the U.S. He's out of St. Cloud State. He's a 6'2", 185 center. I've got him just behind Ratcliffe. And he really showed how he can carry the puck into the offensive zone. And that's something where that's going to move his draft stock up. So those are a couple of guys that are playing in this tournament that are surefire first-rounders. I've got them both in the top 15, and you can make an argument that both could move up before it's all said and done. Well,
we're going to have a busy weekend. Some series will be through 2 games. The games that are playing tonight, they'll mostly be through 3 games when we get back together on Monday. Eklund will be back, and we'll have Russ and myself probably at noon because I will be making my way up to Toronto for Game 3. I'm going to probably be in Maple Leaf Square, so if anybody sees me up there, they can say hello and maybe talk to me about the experience of watching the game on the big screen. But thanks, Russ, for being on the show. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. Have a good Easter. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.